Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. And today we are going to conduct the fourth session of the Dhamma Vinicchaya program. And as you know, we have been doing this based on the well-renowned book written by Most Venerable, late Most Venerable, Renukane, Chamdavimala, Mahathera. Then we already discussed a few topics on this regard, and basically they were aimed at Buddha statues, because it seems like during his time in the 1950s, when the book was written, there were some disputes among the scholars, and also maybe some monks were also involved, that considering Buddha statue, worshipping Buddha statues is apart from, or something that is not a custom in Buddhism, or something that was later invented by the teachers, and it has no particular validity or significance in our tradition. So maybe he was aiming those critics. So maybe that's why he has started this his book with these kinds of topics. Mainly, then we move on to some other topics as well. And so the first 10 lessons, first 10 stories, like discussions, which I have shared with you all, is mainly about the Buddha statues and paying respect to the Buddha statues and so forth. We have done, I think, 8 stories so far, and we are about to do the last 3 of the handout. And what we have gained till now, if I recap the topics that we discussed, first is, did the Buddha request his disciples to make Buddha statues of himself? Obviously, he hasn't, and he would not do that. He would not ask for that. But in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, he mentioned that 4 kinds of beings deserve the stupas. The 4 kinds of beings deserve the stupas. They are Samma Sambuddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, arahants, and the universal monarchs, Chakravarti Rajas, as we know. Because of their service, because of their qualities, especially the first 3 have eradicated all the defilements, and the 4th is very beneficial to the entire society, being a righteous king. And surely, so he pointed out who deserve the pagodas or monuments to be established after their demise, but he never requested to make any statue for himself, because a person who has eradicated all these defilements would not have such desires, and that doesn't make any sense to him, because he would be attaining the parinibbana, and there would be no nama rupa remnant of himself. But if he had, even if he had done such a request, it should be out of great compassion. So Buddha has not made such request, but the question is, how did this tradition of Buddha statues originated? How can one pay respect and venerate to the Buddha who has attained parinibbana? And we talked about this. You don't need an actual shrine or a monument for that. You can even do it with yourself, imagining or considering or directing your mind towards the Buddha and showing a certain physical or verbal gesture, or even paying respect with mind would suffice as a respect to the Buddha himself. And when you have the statues, it gives some sense of, it arouses a certain sense in us towards the Buddha. Then Buddha statues are the only form of Uddesika Chetiyas? No, it's not necessarily. Anything that is considered as a statue of Buddha, something which is representing as the Buddha, could be taken as a representation. So you can, we talked about the story of Pulina Thupa Therapadana, in which Thera, in one of his past lives, arranged sort of a monument shape, sand into a shape of a monument, assuming that this would be the pagodas built for ancient Buddhas, and he paid respect to that. And he was blessed with the merits, and finally he attained arahantship with the power of that merit. Then, if a Buddha statue is an Uddesika Chaitya, why did the Buddha not instruct his followers to make a statue of him in the monastery to pay respect to when he was not present? So, it was a conversation going between Ananda and Buddha. So, he said, it was like he just asked what are the things that can represent the Buddha, and he gave three options. According to commentary story, and it's Venerable Ananda who decided what to be established. Then a good question was asked: why did Venerable Ananda plant a Bodhi tree in the Jetavana monastery when there were already many Paribhogika Chaitya out there? Because Paribhogika Chaitya, the threefold Chaityas, Uddesika, Paribhogika, and Saririka. Saririka are the body parts, remnants of the Buddha's body. Normally, they are obtained after the Buddha's parinibbana, after his demise. After the cremation is done, whatever left over would be taken as the relics. But there is one type of a relic that can be obtained while he was alive. That is the hair relics. Obviously, we know, according to stories, hair relics were donated to Tapassu Ballikas, and according to our history, some hair relics were given to the deity Sumana Saman, Sumana deity, Saman Deviyo. So there are few occasions the Buddha had donated the hair relics while he was alive. But taking the bonds, it had to happen after the Buddha had passed away. So Paribhogika Chaityas are the objects that he consumed, or the Bodhi tree under which he sat and got enlightened. And also we can take the places where he used to sit and meditate. Those are Paribhogika Thana, the places where he used to sit. And when we pay respect to the 7 places he spent immediately after the enlightenment, we have a special gatha for that even. Patamam Bodhi Pallankang, Dutiyancha Animisang, and so forth. And in this stanza, in this gatha, we pay respect to the places he spent the 7 weeks after his enlightenment. So Bodhi tree is a Paribhogika Chaitya. The Vajras on the seat on which he sat for the enlightenment is a Paribhogika Chaitya. And then whatever objects he used, he consumed, such as the robes, any other equipment, or a stick he used, a patra he used, the ball, and also the lodgings that he consumed or used while he was alive. So the question is, while there were many other such objects, why did Venerable Ananda choose to plant a Bodhi tree instead of taking another? Maybe he could have taken the carpet. The Buddha was wiping his legs, or like maybe at least he was stepping on them, because we don't consider that the dust remained on his skin. So technically he doesn't need to wipe according to the tradition, but he used to step on that. So it is a Paribhogika thing, something that was consumed or used by the Buddha. So the answer Mahatera is giving is, there's no such explanation in the commentaries about the decision. He assumes that, postulates that it must have been the endurance the Bodhi tree manifest under all the circumstances, and also it could last for a long period. And still we have that Ananda Bodhi in Savatthi. When you visit Jetavana, you can still see that Bodhi tree. It has endured all the troubles and all the eras, and still remain very, very healthy. So that would have been the reason why he chose selected Bodhi tree over others. Then the next point was, when did the tradition of making Buddha statues begin? Did Buddha statues exist while the Buddha was alive? And we talked about a very strange story reported by Hyun San. That's our pronunciation of his name. And also I also added some information saying that there was a Buddha statue, a discussion, like a story in Burma about the Mahamuni statue which was created by the Buddha. And also we have historical information about in Sri Lanka. There were statues of arahants and Buddha were built some time back. And as far as I know, the first statue that we find is built during the reign of King Kanishka, who was a follower of the Sarvastivadian sect in the northern sides of India. And we also see the Greeks involved in building Buddha statues, Buddha with a mustache we can see. There were the commentaries suggest that Buddha statues were there, and you can pay respect to the Buddha by paying respect to the Buddha statues. So the commentaries are very clear, the tradition is very clear, and there is no reason to refute paying respect to the Buddha statues as far as we have come across now, because technically speaking, our object of representation would be the Buddha, our object of representation, because even the Buddha has passed away, even his Namarupas have ceased, and they are not, there's no effects of his Namarupa. Effects means no Namarupas have arisen due to his Namarupas. He was not born anywhere, and that's the end of the story regarding his Namarupas. They have attained the great Parinibbana. So how could we pay respect to a person who has died? So the obvious question is, the challenging or I would say disturbing question is, why are we paying respect to a bunch of stones or something, some material stuff? Because no one would deny that paying respect to the living Buddha would be a waste. Any Buddhist who adhere to Buddhism would know that paying respect is something that he has acknowledged and suggested. Respecting the elders is a custom in Buddhism, and it is considered as a good virtue and also a good wholesome deed. So there is no argument in paying respect to a living Buddha. The problem arises is when we represent himself with a statue made out of some material stuff. Why are we paying respect to these statues? And we know that some religions do have issues on them. There are, in Christianity even, I think there is a religion where the Buddha, the statues of Mary and all are being respected in the branch of Christianity, and in some they don't pay respect to some other saints and all this. So they have these agreements and disagreements on them. In Islam, they do not pay respect to any statue, and so they consider it something not very wise. So paying respect to statues has been something a heated topic in our religious history. So this could have this idea. It's not, those things have not crept into Buddhism from other religions, but anyone could have asked this question: why are we paying respect to something which is made out of some other material stuff? And paying respect to the Bodhi tree, one can easily ask question: why are we paying respect to trees? Instead, the Buddha has rejected those ideas, because you cannot go, Buddha said, you cannot go refuge under trees, mountains, forests, and this doesn't make any sense. So always what we have to consider is, in terms of Dhamma, even though we are paying respect to a material stuff, we are taking it as a sign which represents the Buddha. So those stuff are signs which represent the Buddha. Our main object, representation, our reference of our mind is the real Buddha, even though he has passed away. Because anyone who rejects, even a person who rejects, a Buddhist who rejects this statue worship, would not dare to blame the Buddha and say that he hasn't done any sin. So if anyone would say, if you blame the Buddha with bad words or accuses him, that we are accumulating a great sin. There's no argument in that. If someone is a Buddhist, a materialistic would have a different opinion on that. That's a different case, because we have to talk about material and immaterial stuff with them. But any Buddhist would say that accusing a past Buddha would generate some unwholesome merits. So how could it happen if the Buddha has passed away? The same logic has to be brought. So if someone says you cannot pay respect to the Buddha who has passed away, how can you accumulate demerit? Or how could you accumulate unwholesome karma, a deed, by accusing a Buddha who has passed away? So if you take the logic or the philosophy behind this, he has passed away, so he's no more. So if we think that we cannot pay respect to a Buddha who has passed away, it means, on the other hand, you are not able to accuse a Buddha who has passed away. The same logic should be applicable in both the scenarios. And why accusing the Buddha is a demerit? That's because of his good qualities. And what were those good qualities? Are they still existing? Are they universal? Obviously not. Someone can say he is a universe. No, he is not the universe. His qualities are not in the universe. His qualities were uniquely in him. They were not in the universe or anything. Dhamma, it doesn't mean that one would say Dhamma pervades everything. These are just sayings. What is Dhamma? Dhamma is the path and fruition and the final liberation. And the Dhamma, the doctrine he taught. Dhamma can be found anywhere. Means you can understand Dhamma by observing the world. That's a different case. Dhamma is not found everywhere. Dhamma, everything behaves according to the laws described in Dhamma. That's a different thing. Everything behaves according to the laws described in Dhamma. That is a doctrine. The doctrine explains that. Doctrine is not found anywhere. It's in books. It's been recorded. Today's doctrine is recorded, or it's written in books. So those are concepts, like the words carry the meaning. And only when there is a meaning, those words make sense. If there is no person in the world who understands Pali one day, the words of the Buddha will have no meaning at all to the world. For him, for a person who knows Pali, yes, we know he spoke something meaningful, but to the world it doesn't make any sense. If everyone lost the knowledge in Pali out of a sudden, for whatever reason. So the books contains the Dhamma, and the memories of whatever software and everything, they contains the Dhamma. One can hold the Dhamma in his mind by keeping it memorized. That's another way to interpret that. But then the next type of Dhamma is the virtues that we develop, Patipatti Dhamma, and the attainments that we attain, Pativeda Dhamma. And the virtues are within us. You cannot say the Dhamma exists in a criminal. If Dhamma is everywhere, it should be existing in a criminal or a murderer or a burglar. No, we don't say that. So, and Buddha's qualities are now existing within ourselves. We may have the seeds to be a Buddha, but none of us share arahant qualities. Otherwise, offering to ourselves would also amount to offering to the Buddha. So, Dhamma, the saying that Dhamma is everywhere is just a statement. It's nice to entertain the audience. It doesn't have any significance. Everything behaves according to the laws described by Dhamma. Dhamma is not found everywhere. You can see Dhamma by observing the world. That's a different case. You can get enlightened by observing the world. That doesn't mean Dhamma is in outside. No. So Buddha's qualities were within himself. So they are not something universal. Anyone could attain them. That's a different case. That's a different case. The possibility is there within everyone to attain. But as long as you have not attained them, you have not developed them within yourself, you are not possessing them. Otherwise, a bodhisattva should be treated as a Buddha before the enlightenment. Then it would suffice that if all the qualities exist within him, it amounts that he had sex with Yasodhara in his lay life. So that would be contradicting. So that leads to chaos. So in our Dhamma. So qualities were within him, and when he passed away, those qualities vanished. Those qualities vanished. So how are we accumulating a demerit by blaming the Buddha, who possessed all the good qualities that have passed away together with his nama rupas? That's because the mind has a capacity to take or cognize or focus on objects that have already passed away. That is a capacity of the mind. So there was a Buddhist sect because of this fundamental, that we know mind can take past objects, and we are capable of accumulating demerits by accusing them or blaming such beings who already passed away. So it means, so if we are accumulating demerits by observing someone who has passed away, so mind is capturing them even though they have passed. That's a strange ability of the mind. It's one of the phenomenon, unexplainable phenomena. So because of this, Sarvastivadians, another sect, believe that the past should be existing in a certain form. So that's why we are able to recall the past. They had a point there, but according to Theravadians in Kathavattu, they don't give a reason for that. What they are saying is, yes, you can recall the past. Just because you can recall the past doesn't mean that past is existing. Buddha's nama rupas are not existing at the moment. So, but mind has a capacity to take the past object, and we have the capacity. It has the capacity to accumulate demerits by focusing on those past objects. So conversely, if you apply this for the merit aspect, yes, in analogy of this, one would be able to accumulate merits by focusing on the past objects, the reality that have passed away. So we are able to accumulate merit by focusing on a Buddha who has passed away. So if someone can accumulate demerits, if someone says, no, you cannot accumulate demerits by blaming a Buddha who has passed away, then I cannot argue with that person. If someone believes that, because I think most of the Buddhists would say that if someone blames the Buddha, we would believe that he has accumulated demerits. But some people are opposing Buddha statue worship. So what is the basis for that? Because paying to the Buddha statue, we are not paying respect to this the physical stuff. We are representing the Buddha. We consider it as the Buddha, and our mind is touching him, his qualities that existed in the past. They have vanished. We know that. If we can accumulate demerits by blaming him, we should be able to accumulate merits by praising him. We should be able to accumulate merits by respecting him. We should be able to accumulate merits by offering things to him. So that's the analogy. That's the philosophy beneath that. So paying respect to Buddha statues means there's representation. But we can keep on arguing on this and going into depth about this object of representation, which I am not going to discuss because it needs some Abhidhamma knowledge as well. So I'm not touching those topics, which are very interesting topics, because we need to distinguish what is the object, what is the mental content, and how could this mind is related to this object of reference. And there are various ways it can be referred, and there are some things that will be very difficult to handle, some questions as well. So anyway, according to the tradition, we are able to accumulate merits by paying respect to the Buddha who has passed away, and statues are just symbols for of the Buddhas who have passed away. So we are not paying respect to any of the material stuff. We are paying respect to the Buddha through them. Sorry. So the next question, what Thera is asking, did all the ancient teachers of Dhamma unanimously accept the tradition of worshipping Buddha statues? What he is saying is, rather than saying they accepted, he is saying there is no arguments recorded in the ancient books, unlike these days. So these days we have arguments on that. But in the historical books, we don't find any disagreement between the Theras about paying respect to the Buddha or paying respect to Buddha statues, because they knew the philosophy beneath that. Because it's very clear, according to Abhidhamma, according to the teachings, according to sutras even, if you can accumulate demerits by blaming someone who has died, passed away, obviously you'll be able to accumulate merits by paying respect to that person who has passed away. And the Buddha statues would be an intermediate thing. You can just pay respect to the Buddha with your mind, just imagining him, and that imagination would never match his actual form. That also we have to understand. Because we would imagine the Buddha looking through the words we have learned. Some may be able to visualize him, but it's never going to be the exact Buddha. Because none of us have seen. No one has a picture of him. We have just a verbal description is there. 2 words. So listen to the same words, we are able to create many visualize in various ways. There should be obviously a variety in our visualization. So obviously they cannot match with the exact Buddha. So if someone is capable of paying respect to the Buddha just with mind, imagining him, the Buddha statue is something which comes in between these two, our imagination and the actual Buddha who has passed away. So we are symbolizing him through a Buddha statue. Symbolizing, it's a symbol. So we keep it as an intermediate thing, and here we are paying respect to this. So when the physical figure is there, we have some kind of a sense of the Buddha. Because now imagine the Buddha statues in your house. There's a Buddha statue in the vihara, in the shrine room, in the temple. So we feel as the Buddha is living there. So when we go in front, we restrain ourselves, we behave well, we don't show our back to that statue. So all these gestures and all these discipline comes in as if facing the Buddha. But if Buddha was only in your mind, that kind of behavior would never be possible. Would never be possible. Then some can argue that we are doing something with delusion because the Buddha is not really existing. So the same argument comes. Even if you disrespect the Buddha, after he has passed away, we all know we are going to accumulate bad merit. Disrespect can be through words, disrespect can be through physical gestures. There are certain physical gestures that we have adopted or we have come into agreement that are conveying a very vulgar or bad messages. So if we use that instead of saying something bad of Buddha, if someone can show this gesture intending him, that thinking that I'm showing this gesture to the Buddha, it's going to be an akusala karma again. Then showing a physical gesture respecting him would also be a wholesome deed, because it's not only applicable to words. Then when the Buddha is if we consider the Buddha is alive, Buddha is in front, because mentally we consider he's there and we accuse or blame or do something, we are getting demerits. Mentally we consider he's there and we pay respect and do some physical gestures, should be getting merits. No one can argue that. So the only issue is regarding a statue. Only issue is that a statue has come in between these two. When we are doing through imagination, no one is going to disagree with that, because no one is going to say that you are not going to accumulate demerits by blaming him or showing a bad physical gesture to him. So that is the basis here. If someone disagrees with that, then this discussion should be in a different way. Because most of them would accept that, would dare not to do that out of fear. It means the opposite can also be done. Then if it can be done without a Buddha statue, the Buddha statue is coming in front as a gesture, as a symbol. And instead of imagining him, we consider he's there. That's the same thing. When you are blaming the Buddha, you consider he's there and you start blaming him, or showing a physical gesture towards him, Or consider him who has passed away and showing a physical gesture to him. And when the Buddha statue is there, we have a sense of his presence in front of us. And then we behave as he's there. So we can accumulate demerits at his presence. In the same way, we can accumulate merit at his presence. It's not an illusion. It's a doctrinally verified fact. You can accumulate merits by paying respect. And it is a very wise means to keep a Buddha statue, considering it as the living Buddha. Showing all these physical gestures, respect, you will be accumulating merits again and again. So Buddha statue is something, considering having a Buddha statue, considering it as the living Buddha, would be a fountain of merits. It's like having a fountain of merits in your house. And it should be given the due respect. That's another thing. It should be given the due respect. In Burma, they separate it, they keep it in a separate shrine. And even that shrine could be seen from the outside, because in houses they keep a box like the wall comes out like a box. So Buddha will be staying there. Even they have the second story, because we will be walking on upstairs, and we will never be walking above his head, because that part is outside the wall, that it's carved in. So you can pay respect to the Buddha from inside, but is placed in so this is the wall, there's something outside, something which has gone out. So Buddha statue is there. So you will not be standing on it as well. That doesn't mean that keeping a Buddha statue on your first floor is a sin. No. That's the way they show their respect. That's their culture. That's their culture. That doesn't mean that you cannot keep a Buddha statue in the first floor or anything. In some monasteries, they try to keep it in the topmost floor. That's personal respect that we have. And so it's better you give it this due respect. Even if you show the respect at particular times, still it would be okay. Like neglecting in another, okay, neglecting means like he's there, the statue is there, we are doing our own stuff, and on the occasion of paying respect, then we take him as a living person and pay respect. And on the other occasion, still we have to maintain some sort of respect towards it, because we have considered it as a living Buddha. That's the point here. So it's a thing, it's a fountain of merits. At the same time, there will be some type of a burden in us if we talk objectively, because you have to give that due respect to it, and should be treating it in a due manner. Should not be keeping food on his altar, should not be keeping our stuff on his altar. So these things, because if the Buddha was there, we would never be doing that. We'd never be doing that. So it goes on, but you should have your own practical limits to understand what to do. Otherwise, you will not be able to talk aloud if he was there. So we have to have a common sense. So that's why in some monasteries, they don't encourage people to have, monks to have Buddha statues in their kutis, because sometimes we do, our personal behavior may not match to his presence. So therefore, in ancient days, monasteries had a particular shrine for the Buddha. Buddha statues were not everywhere in the monastery. It's in a particular, so if you want to meet the Buddha, if you want to have the presence of the Buddha, you go to the shrine, like you are visiting. Now, when the Buddha was alive, you approach him, you go to Jetavana, you go to Purvarama, and talk with him, see him, and get that feeling of presence. So if someone wants to get that feeling of presence, in ancient temples, they used to have one shrine where one Buddha statue is located. One Buddha statue is located. But things have changed. The monks prefer to keep Buddha statues in their kutis and give the respect and to accumulate merits all the time. And also that can be a reason for restraint as well. Because when you have that feeling that Buddha is there, and our behaviors will be very much restrained. At least we have some sense of respect, sense of moral fear, moral shame, as if the Buddha is looking at us. So there are many positive things in it. So there were no disagreements in the Buddha about paying respect to the Buddha statues, because in those days, ancient days, most of the Theras had a very strong foundation on the tradition's fundamentals, and we see no disagreements, as the Mahathera suggests. We don't see any disagreements. In ancient times, monks had disputes regarding various issues related to Dhamma and Vinaya. Yes, disputes were there. Many of these disputes have been recorded in the commentaries by scholars such as Buddha Gosa and Dhammapala. These commentaries mention the differing opinions of various Theras that led to disagreements, often identified them by name. So those disagreements were identified, can be identified with names, or the Theras' names were given, right? So you can clearly show these disagreements are found. There's quite a number of disagreements in Dhamma and Vinaya. That is also natural in a discourse community after the founder has passed away and the community is evolving. So when we try to interpret the teachings on day-to-day issues, since the world is changing and we are having new insights into our thought patterns, so always disagreements are obvious. It has happened to almost every religion which evolved, right? So it's a nature of a discourse community. Then the Kathavattu, a text in Abhidhamma Pitaka, was compiled to address the diverse opinions that existed at the time, covering more than 200 issues that led to debates. Kathavattu is a very nice book. Normally you need some very solid understanding in Theravada fundamentals to understand that book. It has discussions about opinions of other sects held regarding similar issues. So Theravadians' opinion, the other group's opinion. And however, none of these texts contain any arguments or disputes regarding the worship of the Buddha statue. As for the Theravada text, we don't see any disagreements regarding the Buddha statues, even reported in another tradition. Maybe because we may not have all the information of other Buddhist traditions, maybe they have some few issues about Buddha statues and so forth, because there was one sect who believed that enlightenment should be attained through logic. Through logic means like through logical thinking, not by any other means. So there were opinions of that nature as well. So maybe there were opinions about paying respect to the Buddha and so forth in those texts, which we some opinions have been discovered by some scholars, and we are grateful to them that we can have some knowledge about other Buddhist sects as well. But as Mahathera is suggesting, when you go through the sources within the Theravada tradition and also information reported about other traditions in Theravada, we don't see any disputes about this issue, paying respect to the Buddha statue. This suggests that the Dhamma teachers, including the arahants, unanimously accepted the tradition of worshipping Buddha statue. So this is his argument. So he's saying, since we don't see any arguments, if there was such, Venerable Buddha Gosa or Dhammapala would have obviously raised them and at least tried to refute them. So there were no such reports of such debates. Therefore, Thera concludes that there were no such disagreements. All were unanimously agreed upon this idea of paying respect to the Buddha. The next question, these are very small one. By respecting which Chetya, Saririka, Paribhogika, Uddesika, can one gain more merit? It's a valid question. So, because we have a hierarchy of the Buddha Chetyas, the shrine. I don't know how to translate this, giving that exact meaning. Chetya, you should not be translated as a pagoda. Chetya is something that should be venerated. So, in the Dhatu is a Chetya. The relic itself is a Chetya. So, when we translate this word Chetya as a pagoda, it implies some monument built out of brick or any other material stuff. Even the Bodhi tree is a Chetya. So I'll be using this word Chetya. So there are a hierarchy of Chetyas. The Saririka Chetya is greater than the Paribhogika Chetya because it represents the Buddha's body, part of the Buddha's body. Obviously, it should deserve some higher status among the three types of Chetya. Then the Bodhi tree and the Paribhogika Chetyas, the things that he consumed, stands in the second place, while the Uddesika Chetiyas, which were symbols of the Buddha, which had no relationship with him in whatever manner, are considered as the third. And we have a fourth type of Chetya, which we call Pada Lanchana. Pada Lanchana means sign of the footprint. This is another type of a Chetya recognized in Burma. The fourth type of Chetya, Pada Lanchana Chetya. And we also have the fifth type of Chetya in Burma, which is called Dhamma Chetya, a pagoda enshrined by, pagoda built and enshrined with Dhamma books. It's called Dhamma Chetya. So we have 5 types of Chetyas in Myanmar. Saririka, obviously the relics, Paribhogika, the Bodhi tree and the things that he used, and the Padalanchana, the sign of the Buddha's footprint. Because one can argue it's a Paribhogika Chetya, but it's slightly different because it's a sign, it's a mark on a surface. It's not something, it's not a material thing that you can take. So it's a mark. Then that's called Padalanchana Chetya. I'm not sure in the hierarchy what is greater. And that's where why we visit Sripada to pay respect to this Padalanchana. And Burma claims that they also have this Padalanchana in their countries. And some claim one is in Mecca. I'm not sure how to about these historical issues. And then Padalanchana Chetya. Then comes Uddesika. Uddesika is the symbol which represents the Buddha. It could be a pagoda without any relics. It could be a Buddha statue, or it could be anything that represents the Buddha. And then the Dhamma Chetya. Dhamma Chetya is a pagoda enshrined with Dhamma books. Enshrined with Dhamma books. There are 5 types of Chetyas. Anyway, we are talking about the 3 types of Chetyas. And among the 3, we have a hierarchy. Saririka is obviously above all. And then comes the Paribhogika, and then comes the Uddesika. So, because of this hierarchy, there have been certain customs suggested by the commentaries. For instance, now a Bodhi tree is growing. It's the middle one. So we'll take it as the point of departure. So Bodhi tree is growing, and it is disturbing a Buddha statue, which is an Uddesika Chetya, because Bodhi tree is a Paribhogika Chetya, which is in the second place, and it is disturbing a Buddha statue, which is of the 3rd grade, without any relics. So at that time, we cannot cut the Bodhi tree to save the Buddha statue. We cannot cut the Bodhi tree to save the Buddha statue. This Bodhi has to be related to the main Bodhi of Bodh Gaya. We are not talking about Bodhi trees that have got planted in various other areas, because Bodhi tree is the Asatta tree. It is it's a kind of a tree. So it has a specific species family. So not all Bodhi trees are sacred. Any Bodhi tree that is related to the great Bodhi tree under which the Buddha passed away, the tree itself, or its sprouts, or things that are planted with its fruits, as what happened in Ananda Bodhi. And the sprout was brought to Sri Lanka, the the right sprout. Arguments can be there, because if some birds eat them and defecate, and if it starts planting, we normally say Kaka Bodhi in Sinhalese. Could it still be, if a bird eats some fruit from the sacred Bodhi tree and defecates somewhere, and if it get planted, could this be a sacred one? One can still have argument, because it's related to that, but it has gone through a very strange process, a digestive process. So in my personal opinion, I prefer not to consider it as a sacred thing, because otherwise there will be lots of issues, because it could lead to a lot of confusion and all this. That's my personal opinion, but the ones who say it is still sacred, they also have a point, because genes are related. Genes are related. So what I'm saying, it has gone through the digestive system of the bird, and which is a disgusting process. And still, are we still going to consider it as a sacred thing? After that, process has gone through, it has digested, and it has come out with this excrement. And so I'm not sure about that. So anyway, still it's up to you to decide. But if something is not related to the great Bodhi tree, no, it's not sacred. Just because it's a part of the Bodhi tree, it doesn't become sacred. You can consider it as a sacred thing. Representative. Anything can be taken as a representation of the Buddha. So then it becomes Uddesika Chetya. That's the point here. If a Bodhi tree is respected as the Buddha, because any monument can be taken as a symbol of Buddha. But if a Bodhi tree which has no relationship with the great Bodhi tree of Bodh Gaya is taken as a symbol, this it was not associated by the Buddha. Because the great Bodhi tree under which he sat under it, and anything that is coming out of its DNA, in scientific words, or in its lineage, have some kind of a connection with it. So they are considered as sacred. They are Paribhogika Chetya. They are Paribhogika Chetya. Maybe then we can have a hierarchy. What is more closer to the Buddha should be sacred, will be considered sacred. When we are about to decide on two trees, which one to save or which one to cut or anything, maybe there's such a hierarchy. Nothing mentioned about that. That we have to apply our common sense in that, as far as I see. But if someone takes a Bodhi tree as a symbol of the Buddha, and that will become a Uddesika Chetya, not a Paribhogika Chetya, a normal Bodhi. Now, thing is, a sacred Bodhi tree, now we come back to the the discussion. The sacred Bodhi tree is a sacred Bodhi tree, which is in the lineage of the great Bodhi tree, is growing, and it is disturbing a Buddha statue which is not enshrined with relics. You are not supposed to cut the Bodhi tree in order to save the Buddha statue. No, we cannot do that. We cannot do that. But that's something that we imply based on the information that we have, because it says now there is a Bodhi Gara sometimes built to protect the Bodhi tree. A wall surrounding the Bodhi tree. Sometimes it has a roof even. Mostly it doesn't have a roof. It is surrounded by a wall. So if the Bodhi tree is disturbing the Bodhi Gara means the wall or the protective enclosement. If it is disturbed by the Bodhi tree, we cannot cut the Bodhi tree to save the Gara, save the house. The house is for the Bodhi. Bodhi should not be trimmed to save the house. That's a very clear one. So unfortunately, it breaks it. We have the respect towards the sacred Bodhi tree. Sometimes sacrifice has to be done. So either we have to build the wall a bit ahead again. But if the Bodhi tree on the other side is disturbing a pagoda enshrined with Buddha relics, pagoda has Buddha relics, and the Bodhi tree is disturbing it, at that time we can cut the Bodhi tree. Cut the branch, not the entire Bodhi, cut the branch. Because relics are in a higher position. In order to save the relics, even the chamber of the relics, because relics are inside the stupa, inside the chetya. Chetya is not the relic. Relics are inside. So we have to take the entire monument as a one unit. So if the Bodhi tree is disturbing this monument in which the relics are enshrined, we can cut the tree branch and save the pagoda. Only if it contains relics. That's the point. So there is a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy, and it makes sense. So the question is, if there is such a hierarchy, paying respect to which chetya, which object would generate more merit? That's the question. So what is the answer the Mahathera has given? His answer is, even though they have a hierarchy, our object of reference, our object of reference is the Buddha. Is the Buddha. So we are paying respect to Buddha through these objects. Therefore, we are accumulating the same amount of merits by respecting to all three objects. It may differ based on your faith, the feeling, the happiness, the intention, the mindset, but from the receiver's side, because the merit or demerit, the amount of merit or demerit is decided mainly based on two factors. Mainly based on two factors. With regard to dana or donations, we may have other factors as well. And with regard to any merit also, we can add some other flavors into it. But the two most significant factors are the intention or the mindset of the doer and the person or thing towards which that act was done. Take an example. Take a donation for an example. Now someone is offering food or whatever, and the receiver is a Buddha and he's an arahant. Even we offer with the same mindset, same attitude, same happiness. Even we are not aware who they are. For example, a person who is ignorant about the Buddha and arahants, he sees two people standing next to each other. He doesn't know who they are. He knows they are somewhat spiritual and they are recluses. Maybe, for example, he doesn't have a good eyesight, so he cannot see the physical difference between the Buddha and the arahant. Maybe he was blind. Okay, anyway, and he considers them as equal for whatever reason, and he offers both of them two donations, the same amount, with the same mindset. It's a hypothetical scenario I'm creating. But still, offering to the Buddha is greater than offering to the arahant. Your perception doesn't matter in that sense, because when someone has done the merit, the receiver's qualities mysteriously impact the karma. It's very clear in Theravada. So receiver's side. But now in this regard, when we are paying respect to all three monuments, as we said, our object of reference is the Buddha, and it's the same Buddha. So we will be accumulating from the Buddha's side, the contribution from the Buddha's side, the object side would be the same. And it only differs, the variable would be our mindset. The level of our faith, level of our wisdom, happiness involved on that time would differ that merit. So according to this, we are paying respect to Buddha relics with a low mindset, and we are paying respect to the Bodhi tree with a higher mindset. According to this explanation, paying respect to the Bodhi would be a greater merit, because on both occasions the Buddha was the object, and our minds decided, the state of our minds decided which one would end up over other. So that's the answer that he is giving. A paribhogika chetya is considered higher than the uddesika chetya and saririka chetya and the sariri chetya. Paribhogika chetya is considered higher than the uddesika. The second paribhogika is higher than the uddesika. Bodhi tree is higher than the statue. And saririka chetya is higher than the paribhogika chetya. So it means the relics are higher than the bodhi. The amount of merit gained by showing respect depends preliminarily on two factors: the qualities of the one who receives the respect, guna sampatti, and the intention of the person who offers the respect, chetana sampatti. Since one is actually paying respect to the Buddha by venerating all three types of chetya, it is not possible to establish a hierarchy of merit gained from each type of chetya. That's his argument. Right? That's his argument. I think it's clear to all of you. I also want to add something here, which some may not like actually. It's given in Renukane, Chamdavimala Mahathera, the same authors, book of Bodhi Puja. The Sinhalese viewers would be able to read it. It can be downloaded from the internet as well. It's on the internet, and it says that, now imagine, now analyze the gathas where we are chanting. We are chanting, we are paying respect to the Bodhi tree, and according to this, our object of reference is the Buddha, not the tree itself. But if you analyze the gathas that we are uttering, we are not paying respect to the Buddha himself. We are paying respect to the tree itself. Yassa mule nisinnova sabbari vidyang akha, sitting under which tree the Bodhisattva, the Buddha, won all the enemies of kilesa, patto sabban nyutang sattha, under which the teacher attained the omniscience. One day tang bodhi padapang, I respect that bodhi tree under which he sat. All the, if you analyze all the gathas, if anyone is has some basic knowledge in Pali, would be able to understand this. All the gathas are paying respect to the bodhi tree itself. And Renukane Chamdavimala Mahathera in his Bodhi Puja book suggests that. This is another suggestion. He says that in these days, sometimes we have seen in the Bodhi compounds, we establish Buddha statues in addition to the Bodhi tree. And people go and pay offer flowers and do the merits towards that statue, not the tree. And this should not be done. A Bodhi Puja is done towards the tree, not towards the statue. So he encourages not to keep any statue in the compound of the Bodhi tree. So pay respect to the tree, because we are paying respect to the tree. So how does this? Is he making a blunder? No. Renukane Chamdavimala Mahathera is the person who, he knows this stuff. He's a person who knows the fundamentals. We'll come into a quick conclusion that he made a blunder here. No, not at all. The argument was there. Argument was given. Why a Bodhi tree has become sacred? Some may not like it, but this is the argument. This is the answer he has given. A Bodhi tree is a special tree. Why do we make Bodhi Puja? That's the point he's saying. We have written an entire book on Bodhi Puja. Why are we making Bodhi Puja? Bodhi tree is a very special tree. It has some kind of a relationship with the Bodhisattva, if you look into the tradition. And it happened with the Buddha's appearance, as the tradition claims. So, and this is the tree he chose to sit under and meditate. And it gave him, the traditional explanation says that the Mara came to dictate him, and the Bodhi tree gave him some protection. His paramis were the main shield, but at the same time, Bodhi tree also gave him some protection. So this Bodhi tree under which the Buddha got enlightened, by its nature, has some kind of a mysterious power in it. So when we are doing a Bodhi Puja, we are gaining some sort of protection from this immaterial power. That is the philosophy or the teaching behind the Bodhi Puja. So when we are doing a Bodhi Puja, we are paying respect to the Bodhi tree itself, not the Buddha. It is something very interesting. But in this book, when we are paying respect to the Bodhi tree, if you are referring to the Buddha, the merit would be paying respect to the Buddha. You take it as a symbol of the Buddha. But when you are doing a Bodhi Puja, in order to get some protection, we are not getting the protection from the Buddha, or we are not, in addition to getting the protection from the wholesome deed that we have done, we are talking about a protection from a tree which is sacred and which had some power, according to our tradition, a mysterious power within it. You may be some may be surprised to hear this if you are paying respect. All the gathas that are made by ancient Theras who understood the tradition very well, have made the gathas respecting the tree, not the Buddha. None of these gathas respect the Buddha that you are using to pay respect to the Buddha. They are respecting the tree. And the obvious question you have is, didn't the Buddha rejected paying respect to these trees and stuff? That's the defending argument. This is not a normal tree. This is a tree which began with the Bodhisattva and which showed some protection, which gave some protection, and he even self showed some gratitude towards the Bodhi tree and the Vajrasan, the seat on which he sat for his enlightenment, because they gave him some support. And so all these things, and it has some miraculous power as we believe. So it's like getting the support from a divine being. You can get support from divine beings, and Buddha has surely said that. They would bless you, they would sometimes they can protect you. In Jatakas, the Bodhisattva has also got protection from the deities. Paying respect to deities in order to find the liberation is prohibited, because then it breaks your sarana, breaks your refuge. But getting some protection from the deities is not something that is denied by the Buddha, not at all. So it has been said in Lichavi Sutta as well, a person the Mahanama Sakyan, who was a noble being, he said a person who is righteous would always show this respect to the deities, and they will surely, in the end, they will show the respect, they will protect you. It has been mentioned in many places. And a person's duty, it's one of the duties of the person to show some respect towards the deities, because they are another type of beings who are living in this cosmos with us, and who according to our traditions, who has a very strong relationship with us, and some are actually protecting us. So when we can get some support from the deities according to our tradition, and that's the same phenomenon is happening. It's a specialty. It's a special object. Not every tree can do that. So that's why only the Bodhi trees related to the great Bodhi tree is taken in our tradition. So they always contain these special features in it. So Renukane Chamdavimala Thero says, more the lineage is getting older, the power would surely diminish gradually. So the greatest power had the great Bodhi tree had that greatest power. So it may appear at some kind of a physical rays or whatever. I don't know about that. I cannot exactly say what it is. That is how the tradition holds. So there are two sides on this. You can pay respect to the Bodhi tree, symbolizing like as a symbol of the Buddha. So at that time, your object of reference is the Buddha. So all the tree, paying respect to all the three objects would give you the same amount of merit. And while doing the Bodhi pujas, it's a different process. So you are paying respect to the tree, which gave protection to the Bodhisattva, and under which he sat and got enlightened. So these are two different approaches. So this book will not address them. If you are interested in reading about that, go to the Bodhi Puja book written by Renukane Mahatera, and you will be sometimes you'll be surprised by reading what is mentioned there. It's not a blunder made by the Thera. That is how the Theravada tradition has brought this up to date. And all the gathas, if you are using, maybe you are not aware of that. Maybe you think you are paying respect to the Buddha by paying respect to the Bodhi tree. No. All the gathas are made in a way paying respect to the tree, not to the Buddha. Anyone who knows Pali can analyze them, or if you are not good in Pali, you can ask from any other Thera or any other person who knows Pali and ask what is the object of reference of this gatha. To whom are we paying respect? Are we paying respect to the tree, or are we paying respect to the Buddha? It's the tree. All the gathas made for the gathas, we are paying respect to the Bodhi. Anyway, so the last one, do the actual relics, dhatu of the Buddha, display any miracles that could help identify them? Then another very important fact, in one of the commentary explaining stories, Dhammapada commentary, one time Buddha was visiting a certain region, and a Brahmin was paying respect to a certain area, certain land, And he was showing respect to that. And then, I think if I remember correctly, Buddha smiled. And then Buddha asked Venerable Ananda's why. Then he said, he's paying respect to a place which deserves the respect. The place deserves respect, he said. So then it was a question, why, how could it deserve respect? This is a place where the previous Samma Sambuddha, Kassapa Buddha, lived. For whatever reason, I don't know for how long and all this. This is a place where he lived. Then Venerable Ananda, he requested the Buddha, Venerable Sir, please make it a place used by two Buddhas. So he invited him to sit there and do some meditation. So and he did it. And it became, according to tradition, it became a place used by two Samma Sambuddhas. Two Samma Sambuddhas. So here he was referring to the place, not referring to the Buddha, referring to the place itself, the material thing itself, which was consumed by the Buddha. So it means that when there is obviously a connection with the Buddha, so that kind of approach is also found within our Theravada tradition. That's just an insight I'm giving to you all. Do the actual relics, dhatus of the Buddha display any miracles that could help identify them? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It may happen because of the Buddha's determinations, or it could happen due to deity's influence. And the relics, they themselves do not have any intention, because they are non-self stuff and they are non-living stuff. That's the thing. Buddha has died actually. He has passed away. It's in parinibbana. It's a death, and he was not born, so we call it a parinibbana. So these body parts, the remnants of his body, do not have any intention of performing any sort of act. Nothing to say about a miracle. But they can be influenced by the deities, the thing. And also, sometimes the Buddha may make some determinations that such and such miracles happen on such and such occasions. If certain things are determined to happen, I don't think everything is determined, but certain things are certain to happen. So on such occasions, may the relics show such and such miracles. And we know about such 5 instances related to 4 related to the Bodhi tree, and 1 related to the 1 or 2 related to the relics enshrined in Tuparama and Ruamalisai, I think, or maybe only 1. So some miracles did happen according to our history, and also the commentaries, if I remember correctly, that Dhatu's relics did show some miracles, and we attribute it to the intentions or the determinations made by the Buddha while lying down on the bed or the arrangement for his parinibbana, whatever surface he was lying on. And so it can happen through determinations of the Buddha, and it can happen through the influence of the deities, and sometimes the satchakriyas, the truthful, like the determinations made by some other virtuous ones through their utterance of truth. I think there is a picture in our tooth relic temple where a foreign men were going to destroy the tooth relic. Some virtuous upasaka was making a determination, and it went up and it showed some miracles, and the foreigners were surprised and so forth. Such a story is there. I'm not able to verify such stories. So there's such stories mentioned in our tradition, and those have been depicted in the new shrine room of the Tooth Relic Temple. And if you have visited, you may see that. So such sachakriyas can also influence the relic. And also there is a believed thing that, and also our tradition accepts this, those relics would never get destroyed till the end of the sasana. No one can destroy them. That's also a accepted norm in our tradition. So they cannot be burned, they cannot be destroyed by any means, and so because they inherently have the qualities of the Buddha. So Buddha's relics do have some power in that. So that's why they cannot be burned. They cannot be burned. In the same way, it applies to the Bodhi tree. It has some miraculous power within it because it's something related to the Bodhisattva, his paramis and so forth. That's the analogy here. But relics, they themselves don't have the capacity to perform any miracles. They may perform miracles due to a determination made by the Buddha and due to the influence of deities, and also due to the determinations made by some virtuous beings through the utterance of truths or determination of truths. And finally, the relics, they themselves have some miraculous power embedded, so they cannot be destroyed, and they will gather, as our tradition says, some book says, they will gather at Mahacheti, and they will move to Bodh Gaya at the end of the 5,000 years of the dispensation, and it will show the twin miracles which will not be seen by the humans, only the deities would witness that, and then it will burn out completely, and that would be the end of the Sasana, Dhatu Paranibbana. So till the end of the Sasana, we normally consider it 5,000 years after the Buddha's passing away. So at the somehow, whether the number, whatever the number is, so at the end of the Sasana, after the relics have got destroyed, so that's the end of the Gautama Buddha's dispensation in the human realm. And so till then, the relics cannot be destroyed. That's the point. They cannot be destroyed. So that's the accepted norm within our tradition. People may accept that, may not. So that's how tradition is. The relics, the dhatu, are the remnants of the Buddha's body that remained after it was cremated following his parinibbana. These parts did not burn and are referred to as dhatus because they lack awareness and are devoid of self. That's why they are called dhatu. They lack awareness, they lack self. Relics do not have any thought or intention to perform miracles. However, if the Buddha had determined with his psychic powers that may such miracles occur with these relics, then such miracles could happen. At times, miracles associated with relics could be caused by deities to increase faith among people. That's also possible. Sometimes miracles could happen due to the determination and satchakiriya of individuals with strong faith. So these are the points. And I think we did the 10 questions. I hope you got some insights about our basic traditions, customs. On next session, I will be taking some other, few other discussions. And more we go further, there will be some interesting topics, obviously. So I'm planning to finish all the 100. Now we have done 1/10 of the book, and we'll go slowly once a month. So that's why it takes some time, and we'll try to. I'll be adding more and more information with the explanations with the book, and I also have to translate the remaining part, and I'll distribute it, and we'll have we'll be discussing some interesting topics in future. So I conclude the lecture, opening the forum for the Q&A session.
Everyone, now it's time for questions, and if you have any, please press the raise hand button to ask.
Are there any questions in the chat box?
Yes, Bhante, can I read those?
Yes, sure.
So the one
Go ahead.
There are 3. People often mention various names and attributes of the Bodhi tree and engage in different rituals, such as tying colorful flags around it or placing fabric bands around the branches in the hope of dispelling misfortune. So, is this considered a form of veneration towards the Bodhi tree, or is it inappropriate practice? This is the first
It can be taken as in 2 ways. It can be taken as venerating the Buddha himself, or it can be taken as a gesture of venerating the Bodhi tree as well. So as I said, as the tradition holds, the Bodhi tree Bodhi tree is inherited with some miraculous powers related to the Bodhisattva's life and his paramis. So, so they have some power in material power in affecting us. So it all comes immaterial or material, it doesn't matter. It could be material even. So it all comes that there is, because our mind is immaterial. So in order to get rid of determinism out of Newtonian and Einsteinian laws, you have to have an immaterial thing that is influencing the world. So that's our consciousness in the end. So in Buddhism we talk about some miraculous powers, capacities, capabilities. Yes, we do discuss on such things. So Bodhi tree is attributed with such powers. So the tradition holds the idea such acts could give some protection. So that's why they do such activities, and it is if someone does such activities, it's recommended not to do it in a way that would destroy the beauty of the tree or the appeal of the compound or the area. So it could be done. It should be done in a proper way. But the tradition holds, whether people like it or not, the tradition holds such acts can give you protection. The Bodhi tree has that power. If you are more interested, please read Renukane Chamdavimala Thera's book on Bodhi Puja, and it has some arguments, explanations on this fact and how to do a Bodhi Puja correctly.
Many merits, Bhante. And the second question is, according to the Mahavansa, is it mentioned that sacred relics of our blessed Buddha will remain for 5,000 years after his parinirvana? And did the relics of the past Buddhas also remain for the certain period after their parinirvana? So this is the second question.
Yeah, normally this information comes in my memory. It's obviously found in the book called Pujavali, yeah? And it may be found in the commentaries that I have not seen yet. I think they are in the commentaries, Dhatu Parinirvana story, and so it's mentioned in the tradition, within the tradition. I think it's mentioned in the commentaries actually. Mahavansa, I'm not sure whether this Dhatu incident is mentioned. It says that the Buddha visited Sri Lanka thrice, and relics were. The commentary says how the relics were brought. I have read that part in Mahavansa, the beginning part. I cannot recall that whether the relics coming into Sri Lanka and so forth was mentioned. It's in the commentaries. It's mentioned the relics came to Sri Lanka, was brought to Sri Lanka, and I think that the tradition holds that. And all the Buddhas, the past Buddhas, some Buddhas relics got dispersed, and they were small relics were enshrined in various areas of the world. And in some Buddhas, they became a one ball or one unit. And it happened with Kassapa Buddha. So there was only one pagoda with his relics, and that was built very hugely with all the golden bricks. They built it with golden bricks. In Myanmar also we have the Chaityas are golden color. It could be in following the information about the Kassapa Buddha's great monument, Chaiti, or it could be representing symbolizing the Buddha's body color, which is golden color. Could be the both, because if the shrines are enshrined, it means it represents his body. So his body is red, golden. So why don't we paint it golden, gold? So that has sense. So because the relics are considered body parts, so when the pagoda is enshrined with relics, it symbolizes his body. So they color it with golden color. In our country, we paint it with white color, symbolizing the purity, because white is a color of purity. Both the traditions have their opinions and has some sense. Yes, so but ancient Buddha's relics did last. It's a custom that the relics would last after the Buddha's passing. Relics would last after the Buddha's passing. And normally the Buddha's dispensation ends. The entire dispensation completely ends with the passing away of the relics. That's normally how we consider this. The lineage of monks ends when there are no less than 5 monks in the Theravada tradition, monks in Upasampada monks, and when passing away of the last monk, that's the end of the story. No one can bring it back, and then the Dhamma would disappear as well. And the final nail on the coffin is the passing away of the relics, burning of the relics. So that's the end of the story. So every Buddha's dispensation has some time after they have passed away.
The final question, could you please explain the true purpose of venerating the sacred Bodhi tree? And additionally, how should we properly venerate the Bodhi tree in the correct manner?
Yeah, that's why there are two ways you can do that. You can symbolize the Buddha and pay respect to the Buddha through the Bodhi tree, like what we do for the Buddha statues, right? So you are respecting the Buddha. The other way is paying respect to the tree itself. That's how the gathas are being made, composed. So you have your own choice. You can make your own choice. But normally when a Bodhi Puja is done, because we are asking for a protection, we are gaining some asking for. That's a protection we are asking by reciting Paritas, right? Same thing. So we do some people think that it is completely out of the tradition and people have lost the Buddha's original advice. No. Because Buddha gave blessings through Ratana Sutta to the Vesali. And we accept that story. It shows that with the words you can do miracles, right? And that's why we ask my monks to do paritas sometimes. Is it just to console our minds? No, we are expecting some kind of a miraculous protection. And such miraculous protections are there because people are just rejecting things that seems to them from the very outlook that are not very in line with the Buddha, and they are just claiming some stanzas the Buddha has said and try to defend that these are just out of the story, what you have to do is practice and so forth. But anyone who has studied Buddhism in depths, not just superficially and just learn something here and there and come into opinions, so would never, the ones who have studied in depths would know that the Buddhism is a religion which advocates or talks about such supernatural things going here and then. Karma itself is such a thing. You cannot explain any karma in physicalism. No, not at all. So you cannot explain karma in terms of physical forces. The consciousness itself is not physical. So this is we are talking about, and we are talking about other realms beyond our physical domain, right? We are talking about such realms with invisible beings and effects on by them upon us. So all these mysterious stuff is there. It's not that the Buddhism doesn't have this thing. Yes, it distinguishes from other religions because of a self-liberation. We have to walk our own path. It's a distinguished thing. That's okay. But that doesn't mean Buddhism doesn't have rebirth, doesn't have divine realms, it doesn't have karma, it doesn't have protection, it doesn't have miraculous things, miracles. No. Buddhism is the entire package. It's a package. So Buddha could pay miracles, could show miracles. You can develop your mind to higher levels. You can communicate with other beings. The entire Samyutta Nikaya Sagata Vagga is about the discussions he had with deities. And the Atanatic Sutta. So people can say those are later additions because they doesn't prefer that. That's not the scholarly way you do that. Because people have established something and think anything that doesn't matches their view are not Buddha's teaching. So that's not the way to really study those stuff. So normally Buddhism has those miraculous things. It is, those things are there. So therefore, in the tradition holds that the Bodhi tree is embedded with some special powers. And you are capable of gaining some sort of protection by paying respect to them. So that is the underlying teachings behind this. It may be something very weird to most of you. Maybe you have not heard about it before. And that's why I invite you to read Bodhi Puja, a book of Venerable Renukane Chamdavimala Mahatera, a person who had understood the tradition like A to Z very clearly. We don't have any, because he's a person who taught Vipassana, his understanding of Four Noble Truths. They were like in a different level. So even we are discussing his book section. So, and the Buddhism is prevailing in this level in Sri Lanka. One of the major reasons is his book section. So in one of his books, he has written them, when you do the Bodhi Puja, you are paying respect to the Bodhi tree, not to the Buddha. You are paying respect to the Bodhi tree. And that's how the gathas were made. So therefore, those gathas are not made by him, they came from antiquity. And so therefore, so when we are doing a Bodhi Puja, or even we are paying respect to the Bodhi tree, it's up to you, the choice. Am I paying respect to the Bodhi tree, or am I respecting the Bodhi Buddha himself? Both are possible. Both are possible. So Bodhi Puja is a unique type of a thing that is done in order to get the protection. Like Paritta chanting. It's a unique thing. Paritta chanting is not done to accumulate merits only. It's not done to console the mind of someone. It's not done to enlighten someone. There can be a reason for that. But there can be reasons for Paritta chanting. But we are also expecting some kind of a miracle. That's what Buddha did in Vesali. It's not about enlightenment. Yeah, beings got enlightened, that's a different case. The problem Lichavis had was how to get rid of this disaster, the physical disaster. And Buddha could do that by just chanting. And it was not it is not he who chanted. It was Ananda who was chanting. So these kind of forces are discussed in our tradition. And Bodhi Puja is one of them. Bodhi Puja is one of them. And places or the things that are used by enlightened beings are also considered sacred in the ancient days, and the tradition holds the Buddha also was of that opinion. So that's the point. So if you are interested in doing a Bodhi Puja very well, take that book. It's quite cheap actually, and you can follow the instructions. And he has given you how to do it properly, step by step. And yeah, so when you are paying respect to the Bodhi tree, when in temple, you may not be doing Bodhi Pujas, you can do it either as paying respect to the Buddha or either as paying respect to the Bodhi tree. That's up to you. Renukane Chamdavimala Mahathera. We are studying his books actually. He has 27 books written, very clearly explained. Dhamma is very clearly explained. He was one of the best scholars and practitioners we had in our recent past, who passed away in 1997 or 8, and having lived for 100 years. And he has written a book called Bodhi Puja, Renukane Chamdavimala Mahathera. It's quite a small book. You'll be interested to read that actually. I invite you to read that actually. And it will give you a complete, it will open a different perspective about Buddhism, and you start to see a different side. Shall we conclude? May all the deities who are residing in this residence and also who are protecting the Sasana, may they rejoice these merits, and may their divine pleasures be enhanced, and finally they also may attain the liberation as they wish. And also all the beings, may they be happy, may they be safe, and may the ones who are holding wrong views give up those views and finally come into the correct view and finally attain the liberation as soon as possible. So we shall share the merit. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Akasattaha ca bhummattaha deva naga. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha sasanang. Akasattaha ca bhummattaha deva naga. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha desanang. Akasattaha ca bhummattaha deva naga mahidika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha savakang chiran rakkantu tvansala. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo tatan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo. සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බානපත්තිය අයිමිනා පුඤ්ඤ කම්මේන මානුබ්බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බානපත්තිය ඉදම් මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයා වහං ඉදම් මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයා වහං හෝතු ඉදම් මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයා වහං හෝතු සබ්බ දුක්ඛා පමුඤ්ඤතු